But first, I want to ask you about the idea of defunding law enforcement, because both of you have called for defunding law enforcement in different ways. Ms. Pettersen, you signed a letter last year urging President Biden to, quote, divest from immigration enforcement agencies like Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and Customs and Border Patrol. How would defunding ICE and Border Patrol make Americans safer?
Thanks for bringing that up. That's broad language, so it can be made out to be anything. So what I support is making sure that we secure our border, but we look strategically at the investments that we're making. And we look at two criteria when we're doing that. Is this the best use of dollars? Is this the most efficient way that we're going to do this? And is this a humane policy? So for example, right now, people wait up to 12 hours in line as they go across the border to have their cars, the commercial and personal cars looked at. We know that we can actually bring screening so that we can quickly identify people and drugs being trafficked over the border. This will also address some of our supply chain issue. It's also, I don't support funding the cruel border policies of separating families. There's hundreds of kids that don't know where their parents are. And I don't support targeting law-abiding immigrants here in Colorado. I think that we need to be focused on criminals.
And you told President Biden that taking money away from border security is the way to do that, to achieve those aims. You signed that letter.
It's the rest of the letter that is really important to me. There are things that I don't support in funding.
Well, but that's what you told the president to do. You instructed him. You signed a letter that said you should divest from immigration enforcement agencies.
That was the end of the letter. That was part of it. And I just talked about the things that I don't think that we should be funding. And I think that blindly funding and not having scrutiny and oversight leads to government fraud and abuse, and that's what we've seen.
Mr. Aadland, you said that you talked with House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy about defunding state and local prosecutors if they exercise their prosecutorial discretion in a way that you guys don't like. How would defunding prosecutors make Americans safer?
Well, right now we have lawlessness in Colorado. We're leading the nation in auto theft. We're leading the nation in bank robberies. We're the cocaine capital of the country. Violent crime is up over 30% here in Colorado. This is a result of not enforcing the law and soft on crime policies that my opponent has directly supported. So what Congress can do is make sure that federal funding goes to the right places and use the power of the purse as pressure to make sure that the rule of law is upheld. Now, I never would support defunding the police. We need to make sure that law enforcement is well-funded, resourced, and trained. And we have to restore the integrity that was lost because the Democrats push to defund the police. This is very problematic. We must address crime at its root, and that's upholding the law.
So explain to me how it's bad to defund the police, but you've called for defunding the prosecutors who prosecute the cases that police bring them.
We need to make sure that prosecutors enforce the law, and we need to put pressure on them to do so, using the federal means to make sure that our streets are safe. And right now, attorney generals and prosecutors across the nation are, with their soft on crime policies, not doing their job. We have to put pressure on the state level governments to make sure that laws are enforced and upheld.
Lastly, would you name a city or county in Colorado whose prosecutors you would defund?
Well, I think that Denver needs to be looked at closely. We've got out of control homelessness, as I mentioned, and we are #2 in the nation for fentanyl overdose deaths. We're not enforcing the law. And auto theft is a major impact on the cost of hardworking families.
Thank you, Mr. Aadland.